Hello. So today, ivy, one of my favourite sorts of greenery. I love it. It's versatile. If you're making a wreath or a garland, it's a really good sort of infiller to add to it. Or if you want to go really simple, sometimes just on its own looks just as good. This is actually, I think, my favourite wreath of all from my book. I just love it. It's just very simple. It's just very kind of me, really, and not too madly colourful, and actually really very simple as well. So I've had a few people asking if I would show how to make the ivy. So that's what we're going to do today. The pattern's in the book, and again on this one, you'll see that the ivy, there's two different sizes. There's a large leaf and a smaller leaf. So I'm going to make the large leaf today just because it'll be easier for me to show you that one. And again, if you're working obviously to the pattern, all of the details for that are in the book. But again, depending on what your yarn you're using will determine how big or how small your ivy leaves are. This is quite a nice one. This is made in a cotton that's mercerized, so it's got that very slight shine to it, which is quite nice because actually I guess real ivy leaves do have that slight gloss to them, so that works quite nicely. Another thing that I've done, and actually that's for a pattern that's coming up in my next book, I used ivy again, but I used some sewing thread to then stitch up the little tiny veins that go up the middle of an ivy leaf, and that looks really quite effective as well. So that one, like I say, that's with the DMC Petra, which I've got a little bit hooked onto. But what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to use Rikarumi, which is a double knit. So it's quite nice and big. It'll enable me to be quite clear about what I'm showing you. And I've used a 3.5mm hook. So this is what we're going to work on today. Really straightforward. And once you've got the hang of it, again, if you need to make lots for a wreath or a garland, you'll be hooking them up in no time at all. So let me get my bits together and I'll see you back here in a minute. Okay, so here we are. Like I say, on this one I'm using a double knit and I'm using a 3.5mm hook. So same with lots of different things that I do, we're going to start with a magic ring. So nice and simple. We're going to make our magic ring 5 for 5 stitches. So once you've made your initial circle, you then want to work 5 double crochets into the ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold your stitches with your thumb and just pull that one up together, and there is your first round of 5 stitches. Okay, second round, we're going to work 2 double crochets into each stitch from the first round. So into stitch 1, make sure I've got the right end. So into stitch 1 and we're ready to go. We're just going to do 2 double crochets into each stitch. So 1 and 2 into stitch 1, 3 and 4 into stitch 2, 5 and 6 into stitch 3, 7 and 8 to stitch 4, and 9 and 10 into that last stitch. So we now have a circle of 10 stitches. We're going to do one more circle before we get on to start the little points of the leaves. So for this one, at the end of this round, we need to end up with 15 stitches. So how we're going to do that, we're going to do 1 double crochet into the first stitch and 2 into the second. And we're going to repeat that pattern all the way round, which is a total of 5 times, which will then take us from the 10 stitches up to the 15 stitches. Okay, let me show you. So 1 double crochet into the first stitch, 2 and 3 into the next stitch, stitch 4 is on its own, 5 and 6 are together, 7 is on its own, 8 and 9 are together, 10 is on its own, 11 and 12 are together, 13 is on its own, 14 and 15 are together. And that ends the third round. So you can see we've got a good sized circle now, and that actually forms the center here. That forms the center of the ivy, and it gives us the circular center that we need to then be able to make our little points come off from. So at the end of that third round, just slip stitch into the next stitch, just to kind of finish the circle off. So just do a slip stitch, which has closed that circle up nicely. Right, we're now going to basically work in points. So each of these are points. So point 1, point 2, point 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to start off with the point number 1. And for this, you need to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice and simple. So we've got our circle and a chain of 4. We're now going to work back down this chain to form that first point. So starting in the second chain from the hook, the first stitch that you want to do is a slip stitch. A slip stitch makes a nice point at the end. We're then going to do 1 double crochet, and then we're going to do a half treble. So the stitches have all got bigger as we've gone back down that chain, which has then given us a wider end. Now, instead of slipping into the next stitch on the central circle, we're going to miss one stitch. So skip that one there, and we're going to go straight into the next one with a slip stitch. So on to point 2. Point 2 needs to be slightly bigger than point 1. So this time we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to work back down it in exactly the same way. So starting off with a small stitch and working to wider stitches. So 1 slip stitch, 1 double crochet, 1 half treble, and this time a treble as well. And because the point has got a wider base, rather than slipping into the next stitch on the central circle, we're going to do exactly the same as we did before. We're going to skip 1 stitch and we're going to slip stitch into that next one there. Like that. So we've now got point 1 and we've got point 2. Point 3 is the central one of the ivy leaf, and that's the tallest one. So for this, we're going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so a nice long chain for this one. And again, we're going to work back down the chain. So starting in the second chain from the hook, we're going to start off with a slip stitch. Whoops. Sorry, let me just start that one again. Start with a slip stitch, then a double crochet, and a half treble, then a treble. We're going to go really wide here. We're now going to do a double treble to the next stitch, and we're going to finish with a treble treble. and that's then gives you the widest part at the base of that point. Now, because this is quite a wide base of the leaf, we're going to skip 2 this time rather than 1. So skip that one, and slip stitch into the next. There we go. So you can see it's really starting to take shape now. Points 4 and 5 are simple repetitions. So 4 is the same as 2, 5 is the same as 1. So for point 4, we need to chain 5. For 5, we're going to do a slip stitch. Then we're going to do our double crochet, our half treble, and our treble. We're going to slip that 1 stitch on the central circle, and we're going to go into the next one. And now for point 5, we're going to repeat point 1. So we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 slip stitch, 1 double crochet, 1 half treble, skip 1 stitch on your central circle and slip stitch into the next. And that has brought us back to the base of the ivy leaf. So what we need to do now, I'm going to just work 2 slip stitches carrying on around that circle. So 1 and 2, and that does take us right back to the center bottom of the leaf. To make the stalk, I'm going to do a simple chain 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then starting in the second chain from the hook, just slip stitch back down along the chain. This makes a nice thin little stem to the leaf. And then once you get back to the end of the stalk, slip stitch back into the next stitch of the central circle, and that finishes off your ivy. So I'm just going to slip stitch into the next stitch just to finish it off. I'm going to cut off my end, and then I'm going to show you what I'm going to do on the reverse. So there you can see you've got your central circle and you've got your 5 points. Again, something like an ivy leaf would really benefit from a bit of blocking before you use it for anything. But what I just want to show you now is when you sew your ends in on the back, obviously because we skip those stitches on the central circle, you've got a few little kind of gaps at the base of your leaves. So what I tend to do, just to neaten it all up, get your ends to the back, is when you are finishing off your ends, just particularly this top point, because there's obviously quite a big gap between that, I just do a few flat stitches, just joining that leaf point. Whoops, that one didn't join it at all. Joining the leaf point to the center of the leaf. It allows you to close that up a little bit, and when you turn it over you can see now there's no gaps at all showing. And I do that with the other ones as well, and that just, I find, just adds that little finishing touch. Once you've done that, bring all your ends back to the center and just knot them and then snip them off. And there it is, one very simple but very quick ivy leaf. I hope that's helped. Let me know how you get on.